Good evening, and thank you for attending this evening's board meeting. CMHA is holding its monthly board meeting virtually via webcam and teleconferencing on Tuesday, December 15th, 2020, as approved through Ohio's novel coronavirus response bill, which directly affects how local governments throughout the state operate in conducting public business. These sweeping changes were originally approved Thursday, March 27th, 2020, and extended until July 1st, 2020 via House Bill 404, approved November 19, 2020. This is the annual board meeting of CMHA for Tuesday, December 15, 2020. The meeting is now called to order. Roll call. Ms. Mitchell?
Present.
Mr. Weidman?
Present.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Present.
And the chair is present. We have a quorum. Item 3 is the nomination of officers. I'd first like to open the floor for nominations for Chairman of the Board of Commissioners.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Miles.
Noted. Thank you. Any other nominations? Hearing none. I've been nominated. Next, I'd like to open the floor for nominations for Vice Chairman of the Board of Commissioners.
I'd like to nominate Ms. Mitchell.
Very well.
And I would like to second that nomination, please.
Okay, noted. Unless Laverne wants to nominate somebody, I think we've run the course. Okay, so we have motions for both, a second for the vice chair. May I have a second for the chair?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Weidman?
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Mr. Chairman, I think.
Mr. Harris has joined.
Here. Yep.
Oh, all right. Hi, Reggie. Welcome.
Hi and I.
Okay, that's very well noted. So, Mr. Johnson, will you now proceed with the election of officers process?
Yes, I will do a roll call. Each member will state who he or she is voting for the position of Chairman of the Board of Commissioners. Mr. Miles.
Myself.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. Miles.
Mr. Weidman.
Mr. Miles.
Mr. Harris.
Mr. Miles.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Mr. Miles.
And for accuracy, I will just repeat the statement over again. The members have elected Mr. William Miles as chairman. Does Mr. Miles accept the position of chairman of the Board of Commissioners of the Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority?
I do. Thank you.
Better not say no, Bill.
I will do a roll call, and each member will state who he or she is voting for the position of vice chairman of the Board of Commissioners. Mr. Miles.
Ms. Mitchell.
Ms. Mitchell.
Myself.
Mr. Weidman.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. Harris.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Ms. Mitchell.
And for accuracy, I will repeat it. The members have elected Ms. Mitchell as vice chairman. Does Ms. Mitchell accept the position of vice chairman of the Board of Commissioners of the Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority?
I do.
I'll turn it back over to Mr. Miles.
All right. I need a motion to close the election of officers. That's chair and vice chair.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second. Thank you. Roll call. Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weidman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion passes. Item 5.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
Really?
thank you. And thank you, Laverne, for agreeing to serve.
Thank you.
Let's see, item 5 is discussion of recommended, well, let me just take this moment to welcome back to our board commission, Ed O'Donnell. We're very fortunate to have Ed. I don't know if all of you know this or not, but he's got some interesting things on the shelf behind him. I don't know if you can quite make out any Emmys, which he has earned over the years for his talent in the music world
Actually,
and in Hollywood. And now he's spending a lot of time in Nashville representing talent there. He's a busy fellow, bi-coastally,
Okay.
as well as a pretty good accountant as well.
I have a left and a right brain. That's the both sides.
Yeah. So we put the band back together and we're looking forward to what comes. It's a wonderful time to be serving on this board. And
Yes, it is.
It is.
that's right. You know, I take the liberty of
board.
speaking for all the board commissioners.
Absolutely.
And it's just a terrific time. So continuing with item 5 is discussion of recommended changes to the bylaws. Are there any recommended changes? Hearing none, no further discussion. We'll move to item 6 is discussion of recommended changes to the governance policies. Are there any recommended changes?
A question, Mr. Chairman. Just
Sure.
want to have either of these were these changed last year or not? I can't remember. In December.
Didn't we have one change to one of these?
We had one change last year in December, and it was a recommendation from Joy. Joy, you want to update? Do you recall that recommendation?
I think the changes were one, which was maybe done mid-year, was to assert that, you know, a quorum would always have to be necessary in order to take a vote or conduct official business. We imploded that into the bylaws. The other thing that we changed was what would happen in case of the need to have a meeting and maybe there wasn't a quorum at the regularly scheduled time. So we imploded to change that it would occur as soon as practicable after the scheduled board meeting. Those are the two that I recall, Mr. Johnson. You've got a sharper memory.
No, I don't know about that, but yeah, those were the changes that we made to be clear on our quorum. And then if we had an issue with getting a quorum at our regular meeting, what the public, what we would do to conduct that meeting as soon as possible.
Do the bylaws
Those
cover,
are all the changes that were made to the bylaws in the last 12 months.
do the bylaws cover the situation where the meeting starts with a quorum?
Looks like Mr. O'Donnell may have frozen there.
To answer your question, Mr. Oh, he froze?
Nope, he's there. He's back.
Okay.
Okay. I think he was asking, do they cover the situation where you start with a quorum and the quorum leaves or a party leaves?
Correct.
Yes, that was
Yeah.
exactly what the
What we
change
covered.
was to
Okay,
take care of.
great. Thank you.
All right. So if there's no other business to come before the board, and Tom, did you want to add anything to that discussion?
No.
Okay. So if there's no other business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. The meeting is adjourned. Now we move on to the Instrumentalities Annual Board Meeting for Tuesday, December 15, 2020.
Mr. Chair,
Greg, do we have to wait till 6?
we have to wait till 5:45 for the instrumentalities.
Okay.
So we got another couple minutes for that. And then after the instrumentalities, which will go very quick, we do have to wait till 6 o'clock to start the regular board meeting because that's what we told the public.
Okay. So we're 2 minutes from 6:45.
5:45.
I'm sorry. 2 minutes from 5:45. Okay. All right. So we'll just stand down until then.
Yep.
Okay. What's the forecast for snow here tomorrow? Reggie, are you still in where I think you are?
No, I'm in Cincinnati. We
Okay.
are back, back in civilization. But I pretty much stay within the confines of my house, and then I go into my office after business hours, so that I don't have to do anything. So if we get snow, I'm gonna happily shovel, and then I get my wine delivered. I join the wine club. My cellar is stocked for delivery.
The important things.
The important thing, so it can rain, it can snow. If it's really sunny outside, I'm gonna go sunbathe on my back porch. So, the weather. Listen, I've set up. I have my internet, so I'll be good.
But you would have been in the path, right?
Oh, well, actually,
The nor'easter?
we drove back last weekend. Our plan was to wake up early Sunday. So those of you who know, my husband and I, we inherited a summer home in Little Compton, Rhode Island, and we went out for 2 weeks and worked on it. And I worked remotely. Beautiful. It's the most southern eastern point you can be in Rhode Island. And we were going to come back on Sunday, I think it was the 7th. But by Saturday the 6th, we did everything we needed to do. And we were like, okay, I guess we'll leave. But it was a great idea because the storm was chasing us like out of the Northeast. Like we were just like, from the time we left Rhode Island to we get to the middle of Connecticut, we were just like, the cloud was following us. And once we got out of the Northeast, we could really like turn and see this like massive snowstorm like in our rearview mirror. And then it was like clear sailing for this. So yeah, it was a smart decision. Yeah.
Very well. So shall we resume? Let's see,
Yep.
where was I, Mr. Secretary?
Instrumentalities Annual Board Meeting.
Right. So the meeting is now called to order. Did we have roll call?
Nope.
All right. Roll call, Ms. Mitchell,
Present.
Mr. Weedman,
Present.
Mr. Harris,
Sorry, present.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Present?
and the chair is present. We have a quorum. Item 3 is discussion of recommended changes to the bylaws. Secretary Johnson has requested to table this item while CMHA completes further review of current bylaws for recommended changes. Is there a motion to table?
Motion.
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, hearing none, roll call, Ms. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. The resolution is tabled.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. A roll call, Ms. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. The meeting is adjourned. So. Gavel back into session. This is the regular board meeting of the CMHA for Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. Meeting is now called to order. Roll call, Ms. Mitchell,
Present.
Mr. Weedman,
Present.
Mr. Harris,
Present.
Mr. O'Donnell. Ed, demute.
Sorry,
Okay.
I am present.
You know how official we are about these
Yes,
things.
of course.
And the chair is present. We have a quorum. Item 3 is approval of the minutes.
Motion to
Is there a
approve.
motion? Okay, thank you. Are there any
Second.
corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, roll call, Ms. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell,
I have to abstain.
noted, and the chair votes aye. The motion passes. Item 4 on our agenda is presentations. Ms. Rima Ruber will introduce Plant Moran staff for discussion of the CMHA fiscal year 2020 annual audit.
All
Rima.
right. Thank you. Good evening, commissioners.
Good evening.
Tonight, I'd like to introduce Kelly Perlman, who is a partner at Plant Moran. And I believe I also see Tom Piper, who is senior manager, and Brittany Kidd, who is also on Plant Moran's staff. I think that's it. Is that it? Yes.
Yep.
Okay. That is it. So tonight, Kelly will be presenting an overview of the 2020 fiscal year 2020 draft audited statements. This was a very unique year, as you all know, with multiple events occurring and impacting our agency. Events such as the pandemic, completion of implementation and go live of our new enterprise software, financial closing of over 400 units from public housing to our multifamily platform, managing and overseeing 4 major developments undergoing substantial rehab, which also included some relocation. These are just a few events which occurred and all were completed and managed while we were very quickly creating a very successful mobile workforce. Due to these events, as well as others I have mentioned, created some delays in information outflow to our audit team. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Kelly and her staff for working patiently to complete this audit, this comprehensive audit on time. All of this was done online on off-site. We very much appreciated working with Plant Moran Group. And once again, I want to say thank you, Kelly, and all the staff at Plant Moran that worked with us this year. Kelly?
Great. Thank you, Rima. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us today.
Yeah,
Again,
welcome.
thank you. Again, my name is Kelly Perlman. I know I've seen some of you before, but for those who have not yet been able to meet, I am the engagement partner for the Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority audit. As Rima mentioned, I have Tom Piper and Brittany Kidd with me, who also serve on the engagement team. Just like Rima mentioned, this was a very unique year. There were large transactions, there was a software conversion, all during the pandemic. And that was the reason why we completed 100% of our procedures remotely. So we echo Rima's sentiment and want to thank her and the entire accounting team for providing our requested documents and being available for questions and additional requests throughout the audit. Our audit was conducted in accordance with governmental auditing standards, in which we are happy to say we've issued an unqualified opinion. We noted no transactions entered into by the authority during the year for which there was lack of authoritative guidance. No significant transactions that had been recognized in a different period than when the transaction occurred. The most sensitive estimates affecting the financial statements would be the allowance on loans receivable and the assumptions around the actuarial calculation of net position and other post-employment benefits liability. So for those, we evaluated key factors and assumptions used to develop those estimates. It's a similar approach to what we had taken in prior years, and determined that it was reasonable in relationship to the financial statements as a whole. We'll also be providing some required communication with governance. Again, this is similar to the letters that you would have received from us in the past. And we have 2 past adjusting journal entries that will be included on that letter. Both of them are timing related. One is for the recording of construction in progress, and one is the related notes receivable, both of which are recurring, again from the prior year, and have been determined to be immaterial to the financial statements taken as a whole. So I'm going to turn it over to Tom Piper to cover the single audit piece.
Great. Thanks, Kelly. So in connection with our audit of the financial statements, we also performed a single audit over the authority's federal awards. As part of the single audit, we are required to take a risk-based approach and identify major programs of the authority and issue reports on the authority's compliance with the programs, as well as their internal controls over compliance with those programs. The programs that were tested and identified this year were low-income public housing and the capital fund program. And we have issued an unmodified opinion on both of our reports. Now, during the course of our testing, we did identify an instance of noncompliance that was indicative of a deficiency in internal control over compliance as it relates to procedures in place surrounding the public housing waitlist selection process. The results of our findings are included in our report, and management has provided its views and planned corrective action. However, again, I just would stress that, the instance of noncompliance was not significant enough to modify our opinion in any way, and we did issue a unmodified opinion over compliance as a whole. So, thank you.
Yep. And again, we would like to thank management and the accounting team for their assistance during the audit. We appreciate the opportunity to serve as the auditors for CMHA, and we're happy to open it up to the board for any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Are there any board member questions for Kelly or others on her team?
Yeah, and can you just, this is Reginald Harris, just talk a little bit about the, when you discovered the, what was it, the
waitlist finding?
Yeah, the discovering waitlist finding. Like, was that a symptom of a breakdown in process? Was that like a clerical error? Like, and the controls that we put in place, like how common is that? Was this like a common thing that you've seen? Just maybe a little bit more context in that way.
Sure. So this was a finding that we have had in the past for CMHA. I believe there were 2 instances. And what was our total population, Tom? Can you remind me?
We tested 40 individuals that would have moved in during the year. So
of the 40, we did note 2, and they were the clerical errors that you would be referring to. And the internal controls that we noted are really that they weren't caught in the normal process of review. Rima, feel free to elaborate on your controls over those if you'd like.
Kelly, I appreciate that. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I believe Marquita Flowers, who's our Director of Asset Management, did a corrective action plan. And Marquita, would you like to make a comment on the action plan?
Yes, thank you. So we did review the findings of the auditors and identified additional controls that we're putting in place and executing currently to ensure that there's not a reoccurrence of those clerical issues. So there's 2 points in the process that we will now be checking to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Okay, so if I may, Reggie, Kelly, you're not suggesting that you found anything other than an honest error. There was
absolutely. They were
nothing
2 clerical
nefarious
errors
about it.
There was, correct, Mr. Miles. There was no indication of fraud or anything like that. They were, from what we discussed with management and what we saw, they were simply clerical errors.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure if I know our staff, that won't be an error that occurs again. I think I know my staff.
Just really quickly, Mr.
Reggie,
Miles.
go ahead.
And I want to say, and there was, I in no way was suggesting anything fraudulent, but more of just the complexity of managing those lists and just understanding, like, right, I mean, like when you solve for them and you go and you put those controls in, like just understanding the context of, like, how you manage that, and then what does it mean when a third set of eyes catches something, and just more from that perspective, just understanding the framework. So that makes a lot of sense, your explanations.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from commissioners? Well, again, Kelly, Tom, Brittany, thank you for your professional work and all your efforts, and we're glad that we can check this one off.
Yes.
For this year.
Absolutely.
And I was going to say have a nice ride home, but that's not applicable right now. So you're probably already home.
Yes.
So Merry Christmas to each of you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Same to you.
Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, item 5 in our agenda is public comments. We have one request to speak. Mr. Rula Newland, a landlord in the HCV program. I remind everyone our board standard is that each speaker has 2 minutes from the time they begin their presentation for their comments. And is Mr. Rula Newland present?
Mr. Miles, we received a call just recently from Mr. Newland that he took a COVID test maybe about 30 minutes ago. So he wants to reschedule for January board meeting.
Oh, okay, very well. Best wishes to him. So moving on, item 6 is discussion of secretary recommendations. Item 6A is the financial report. 1, resolution 4383 to approve CMHA annual audit for fiscal year 2020. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. A second? A second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Mr. Chairman, since I am just returning
Sure.
to the board, I am going to abstain on this vote.
Very well. That's not a problem, is it, Joy?
No.
Joy?
No, it's not.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, and so the chair votes aye, the resolution passes. Item 6B is request for approval to solicit bids for the following items, of which we have none this month. Item 6C is resolutions to award contract renewals. Resolution 5484, authorizing the CEO of CMHA to sign the 4th one-year contract extension option with G.J. Birding Surveying Incorporated, Gloss Pyle Schomer Burns and DeHaven Incorporated, DBA GPD Group, Infrastructure and Development Engineering Incorporated, the Manick and Smith Group Incorporated, Power Engineers Incorporated, Elevar Design Group Incorporated, DBA SFA Architects Incorporated, and Value Tech Incorporated, DBA VT Design Solutions for solicitation 2016-4102. General Engineering Services in a not to exceed amount of $200,000 per firm for a maximum 5-year contract funded by capital grant funds and development funds. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. A second?
Second?
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Aye.
The chair votes aye, the resolution passes. Now, resolution 5485, authorizing the CEO of CMHA to sign the 3rd one-year contract extension option with General Electric Security Incorporated, DBA Dial One Security Incorporated, for solicitation 2018-1003, fire alarm services in an amount not to exceed $565,000 per maximum 5-year contract agreement funded by operating funds.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Questions? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, the resolution passes. Resolution 5486, authorizing the CEO of CMHA to sign the 2nd one-year contract extension option for solicitation 2018-4007 for project management, RAD development, and design management consultants with Community Development Strategies Incorporated, CSG Advisors Incorporated, CVR Associates Incorporated, Dominion Environmental Group Incorporated, DBA Dominion Due Diligence Group, Pearl Grove Consulting LLC, Joan M. Garrity, National Council for Community Development, Incorporated, DBA National Development Council, New Hope Consulting LLC, and IFH Solutions LLC, in a not to exceed amount of $100,000 annually for each, for a maximum 5-year contract funded by operational funds, management services fees, capital grants, and development funds.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris. Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The resolution passes. Item 6D is to adopt a resolution to award the following construction contracts. We don't have any new construction contracts this month over $100,000. And per resolution 5442, approved August 25th, 2020, the CEO has authorization to sign contracts in an amount not to exceed $100,000. In November, there were 0 contracts at $100,000 or below. Item 6E, adopt a resolution in the general category, Resolution 5487, authorizing the incorporation of Maple Rad LLC, Maple Rad Development Corporation, Beechwood RAD LLC, and Beechwood Rad Development Corporation, and associated employer identification numbers to facilitate the rental assistance demonstration, conversions, rehabilitations of Maple Tower and the Beechwood.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. The resolution passes. Resolution 5488, authorizing the CEO of CMHA to negotiate and enter into a contract for solicitation 2020-1001, janitorial services and COVID cleaning for asset management properties with Trust Us Transportation LLC, DBA Trust Us Maintenance and Janitorial, Lake Guam Dukes, DBA Intense Pro Cleaning Services, DCJ Janitorial LLC, A Fist of Contractors LLC, Bruce Gray DBA From the Ground Up Renovations, Clayton Walker BDMDS LLC, Koger Enterprise LLC, MT Franchising Incorporated, DBA Jan Pro of Greater Cincinnati Dayton, Primo Services LLC, Pleasant Contracting Services LLC, Care and Cleaning Services LLC, Diamond Professional Contractors LLC, GLT Renovations LLC, Alex Malaya Cleaning Services LLC, Somebody Gotta Do It LLC, Finesse Services LLC, Connecting Plugs Cabling Service Company, KNVY Renovations LLC, Triumph Home LLC, DBA Triumph Property Services, and Dixie Services LLC, in a not to exceed amount of $100,000 annually for each contractor or the board approved budget for a maximum 5-year contract paid for by operational funds.
Motion to approve, but Mr. Miles, can I just do a clarification? I believe you said 2020-1001. It's actually 1004. Just for
Correct. You're correct, Mr. Weedman. You're correct.
It is, and thank you very much for correcting me. Any other corrections on that? Hearing none, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions?
I do have one question. This is an authorization not to exceed $100,000 per contractor. Can you give me an idea, Rima, I guess, what our annual expense is for janitorial services?
Sure, Mr. O'Donnell, I'll actually defer to Janelle, who is our procurement officer, if to give you that information.
Okay.
We've actually, since just April to November, we spent $360,000 just on the COVID cleaning.
Oh, just on COVID?
Ooh.
So are we using CARES Act funds to be reimbursed for that? We are. Okay.
Yeah, we're using CARES Act funds for that, Mr. O'Donnell, but if you look at, we have a plethora of MBE, WBE, Section 3 contractors doing this work. So that's part of our main goal and why we have so many contractors. And then even though it says $100,000 per, that means that if a contractor reaches $100,000, we will cut them off. And that's one contractor, but it also says approved budget by the board. So if we don't have budget approval, they won't ever get to 100,000. So that's why when we leave it at $100,000, because if we have an emergency, and this includes bodily, if we have a fatal shooting or something like that, it includes all of that type of cleaning in our units and on our sites as well. So it doesn't mean that we're going to spend, I guess there's maybe 15, 20 contractors, $100,000 in 1 year with them.
Right.
It just means that we have a great number that we can choose from. And if somebody's not performing, and then some of them have specialties that other ones don't.
Janelle or Rima, so can you just, and this doesn't have to be exact, but sort of an estimate, non-COVID time, right? Non-COVID, high occupancy rate, we are spending how much, roughly annually on cleaning?
Yeah, and I'm going to need to try to do some calculations with that. We were trying to filter out the numbers and struggling a bit. So if I can get that back to you later this week.
And that's just truly just like informational, right? To sort of understand what that's like, and particularly to give some more context to that COVID number as well, right?
Yeah, I can answer that, Mr. Harris. We usually only spend in cleaning just janitorial for our maintenance, our offices at our main campus, and just general cleaning at some of our satellite offices. So our cleaning contract usually is not that heavy. At some of our other sites, we have a little more cleaning in our community rooms. So we're probably at maybe $250,000 at most, but we include janitorial cleaning in trash chutes as well. So we have chemicals that we drip down into trash chutes, and that's in our high rises where we clean out the trash dumpsters and change the dumpsters and put chemicals in there as well. So all of that is included in that number as well.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. The motion passes. Resolution passes. Now, Resolution 5489, authorizing the CEO of CMHA to negotiate and enter into a contract for solicitation 2020-7001 near-site clinic healthcare services with Marathon Health LLC and a not to exceed amount of $160,000 annually, or the board approved budget for a maximum 5-year contract paid for by development funds, administrative fees, operational funds, and management services funds. Is there a motion to accept? Okay, a second? Did I hear a second?
Yeah, Reggie.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
I read the information in the board book, and honestly, I'm confused as to what exactly this service is. Can somebody explain exactly what this is?
It's Lisa Thomas. If it's okay with the board, I actually would like to invite Eric Newville, Vice President of Business Development for Marathon, to provide the board with a brief or quick update an overview of what services would be provided through the near site clinic.
Great, thank you.
Ed, excellent
Gary
question.
is, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. My name's Eric Newville, local, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a local Cincinnati resident and lead business development for the Cincinnati marketplace. That's a great question because, you know, and there's a number of people that when we're beginning these discussions have these same questions. So Marathon is an employer-paid concierge independent primary care network of providers. And so I know that's a mouthful. And it operates alongside of your health insurance. So it is not insurance. It doesn't replace your insurance. But what it is if you're familiar with concierge primary care, where you get extensive time with your provider. Today, many times, at least prior to joining Marathon, the average visit that you spend with your provider is roughly 8 minutes. They see 7 to 8 patients an hour. And so what happens with Marathon Health is 3 things. Specifically, it's comprehensive primary care, which includes acute primary care, meaning treatment of bronchitis, coughs, colds, etc. And then chronic disease, if you had diabetes or hypertension, etc. Our primary care providers take care of those in a much more effective manner than many times current primary care, because many times they don't have the time to spend with patients to properly treat those patients. That's what our employers and employees that go to these health centers tell us. It also includes in these health centers roughly 150 different generics that are dispensed, which are included in your base price of $160,000, as well as any diagnostic testing that would take place. So the bottom line is the reason that our clients choose to utilize this versus many times their current primary care practitioners, physicians, nurse practitioners areas. Number one, it has been proven to lower the cost of healthcare. And I'll get to some of the key reasons why, but on average, clients will see a 20% decrease in overall cost of healthcare. It improves the quality of healthcare delivered. And quite frankly, it measures that quality of healthcare. Some examples are lower blood pressure, better controlled diabetes, and we'll measure that for you and report on that on a monthly to quarterly basis. And even more importantly, one of the key drivers of this is around employee retention. As I said before, many times when we go to our providers, we spend more time waiting in the waiting room and waiting in the exam room than we do with the provider themselves. That's really flipped in this primary care model. You spend anywhere between 20 minutes to 60 minutes with the provider. And the reason that's one of the key drivers of improved healthcare, improved quality, and decreased costs, because the providers can spend a significant amount of time with patients, understand all their needs, as well as, if you're familiar with social determinants of health, behavioral health challenges, and we can better diagnose those and better treat those for your employees. Does that answer, Ed, does that give you a better feel for what this is all about?
Yeah, it does. I do have some, I guess, a question about how much of an overall cost reduction will this result in for CMHA?
What?
How are we going to measure that, and who's going to measure that?
Okay, great questions. So we will work with, we prepare an independent study at the end of, so you need roughly 18 months of full mature claims in order to see the decrease in healthcare costs. Mm-hmm. So to begin with, the average percentage of decrease of our clients in their healthcare costs are 20% overall. We'll measure that at the end of 18 months once we have mature claims, and we'll also, I believe your broker is Haran. We also work with your insurance broker to do that analysis also.
This is Reggie Harris. Question. So I mean, this is a great question. The motivation behind this service, was it specifically to lower healthcare claims, or is this also thought of as like a benefits amenity for employee retention?
Reggie, it's another good question.
So Eric, I think that's a question for Lisa to answer. What
okay.
What our
Sorry.
motivation was to do this.
So Mr. Harris, it was both to give that added benefit to employees and their dependents that's covered under our health insurance plans, as well as to reap the benefit of our lower claim experience and cost.
Thank you. Mr. O'Donnell,
Let me come back in here for a second. I mean, does this, are we looking at this then as a 1-year trial or an 18-month trial? Is that what this is? That we're going to evaluate?
Typically, because within the first year, there's usually a break even under the participation in the near site clinic. So you would start to really realize the savings or decrease in claims costs over a 2 to 3 year period.
Okay, and we're relying on the experience of other users of this service who've experienced, I think you said, Eric, that it was an average of 20% overall cost reduction. Is that right?
That's what we've seen. Now, key drivers of that is engagement of employees, and we work collaboratively with Lisa and the entire team, as well as your insurance broker, to design the program to engage employees. So if 10% of people engage, there won't be any savings. The target, and we've seen on average, I was just meeting with a client today, Advix, and their average engagement is like 75% of all employees actually go see a provider. So we work collaboratively on communications, on marketing programs to make that happen.
And the benefit for an employee to participate in this clinic service is a lower cost to them with primary care services that they seek, as well as pharmacy costs. And it'll also reduce their need to potentially use urgent or emergency care. The clinic will be able to provide those services that they typically would seek in those areas.
Great point. And in most all cases, you can see a provider at Marathon Health within 24 hours or within 48 hours, your own provider. So, we've got 4 centers across the city. And so the access is improved. So what many of our clients have seen is decreased urgent care, decrease emergency room, because you have broader access to your medical provider.
Is there a relationship with Kroger, what do they call them, little clinics?
Yeah, minute clinics. Great question. There really is, this is a completely independent primary care solution. If that was a preferred, the scope of services at a primary care minute clinic are much more limited than what can be done at a Marathon Health Center. Just to give you an example, scope of services is about 1,500 services for Marathon. In many minute clinics, it's usually around 300, just to have the limited scope of service. So they're not really taking care of chronic disease, or they're not taking care of the labs in the office, which will draw, and they do have dispensing pharmacies in some of their stores, but it's just a more limited scope of practice for primary care services in minute clinics. We are independent. We do refer. We've got like a specialty referral process where if I needed to be referred somewhere, we would reach out to the specific specialist that we want to refer to. We'd set the appointment based on our perception of their quality and cost. And then we would set the appointment, get back to you, because if we refer you somewhere, we want to make sure you get there and follow up with that.
Derek, you said you have 4 different locations in Cincinnati. Is that right?
Yes.
Where are those locations?
We've got one downtown, one in Springdale, one in Green Township on Rybolt Road, and one just north in near Kings Island in Kings Mills. I think that when we did a heat map, so we got a heat map is basically taking all the zip codes for your employees, and we took a look at it. Lisa, what was that? It was about 88% of folks had access.
Over 80% of employees are within 10 or less miles of one of the near site clinics.
Yeah, my question about the little clinics is the value in an emergent scenario. If you're in another state and it's Sunday, would the marathon, would the marathon clinics aren't going to be available to you, maybe even locally on a Saturday or Sunday, I don't know. But the opportunity is to realize significant savings if a first step could be at the little clinic instead of the emergency room.
And that would flow through the insurance.
Well, so here we go. All right, you've answered my question. Thank you. Any other questions?
I just want to point out, I'm sorry, that the marathon clinics do offer at one of their sites weekend hours on Saturdays.
And evening hours at one of our clinics.
Yes, 7 p.m., yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call, Ms. Mitchell.
Wait a minute, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. One more comment. I just want to say,
Sure.
I will vote for this, but I have some just intrinsic skepticism about programs like this. And I'm voting with the assumption that we're going to see a report back from the staff next year about how effective this program is, how the benefits side of it, and also the cost savings side of it.
Well,
so I'm voting just based on the assumption that we're going to give this a try, and we'll get the results back next year, no more than 18 months, and be able to evaluate it. It's at the benefit side and the cost side, cost reduction side.
And piggybacking.
Yes, we can definitely provide an update.
And piggybacking on that concern, Eric, what will it cost us to exit this contract between now and 18 months and at 18 months?
The contract is, Lisa, I believe the contract was a 3-year contract to be evaluated, obviously on the annual basis.
Yes, it'll be evaluated on an annual basis. Janelle, do you want to provide any additional information? But yes, it's a 1-year renewable contract. Up to 3 years.
Does that mean that we can walk away from it at the end of 12 months?
If we don't renew I'm sorry.
So the answer is yes. The answer is yes, Mr. O'Donnell. And if we don't realize the participation, and if we do realize the participation and don't realize the savings, obviously we wouldn't come back to you for an additional extension. So that's the beauty of this process. And Mr. Miles, to fully answer your question, we'll find out what that exact number is. It's based on how the contract is structured. If we want to exit 6 months prior to or after that first year, what it will exactly cost the housing authority, and I'll make sure that the board gets provided that information.
I'm not comfortable voting until I know that information.
Wait, what information, Bill, specifically?
What it would cost us to exit the contract between now and the next 3 years, at any point along the next 3 years.
Eric, can you shed any light on that?
Yes, there was no, in the contract, there was no definition of a penalty clause or additional cost that was outlined in the contract. It is targeted for a 3-year term. Obviously, if there's some diligence of duties that are provided, it can be, exited at a one-year term. I can tell you that usually doesn't happen, but it is a 3-year renewable contract. We renew every 12 months.
Your description is relatively subjective, so I guess that might.
We do the contracts 1 year with option to renew up to 5 years. So it'll be the same as what you always see. 1 year we look at it and we come back to you and decide whether to go another.
But so
I have a question though.
But that's not the question.
Sorry.
What does it cost us
But also-
to exit it at the 1 year term?
But also,
Eric?
can we just, before we do that, I'm really confused by this idea of like, if the program itself takes 18 months to see the results, then I don't understand why we have this metric of exiting after 1 year if we know that we actually won't see the benefits of the program until after 18 months. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's like,
Well, here's
those two things don't jive with me.
right. The big answer to that is that we only do contracts on a 12-month basis. Usually what Eric gave you is what usually the industry looks at and what the industry sees when they see a huge savings or benefit to the program. And what Janelle is saying is that we'll come back to the board after a 12-month cycle and ask for another extension if things are going in the positive realm. There's a lot that we have to do to market, advertise to the staff, and this won't be ramped up until July, start of the fiscal year, so we can do all of those things. As far as the contract, so if we have the contract for 1 year, I do not believe that there is a cost that if the board does not approve it after that 1 year, that CMHA has to pay. Unless Janelle or somebody corrects me, if the board says no after a year, and what we'll do is share what the benefits were, did everything Eric say as far as the office's hours and surveys from our staff on what they thought the benefits or what they didn't like. We'll have all of that and bring that back as whether we want to recommend to go forward again for another year. Here again, it's another option of what we're trying to provide the employees and reducing their healthcare costs in this rising cost in the medical field. And we thought it was a really good idea because they had a lot of offices that were close to where our employees lived to be able to access for their kids and things like that. But I do not believe, now I can't be 100% Mr. Miles, but after 12 months, and let's say we did recommend it to the board, or I made the recommendation to the board, and the board said no based on they didn't like the numbers or surveys from staff, there wouldn't be a cost to CMHA. And if I'm not accurate about that, I will update you, but I do not think that it would be. And in all of our contracts, we have performance standards. So we'll have in the contract how they should perform throughout the 12-month cycle. And we'll be measuring those because we do that in every contract that we have. We place performance measurement standards in there. So Jerry and Janelle, on every contract, they go through and make sure that those measures are in there for performance.
Mr. Johnson, if I may also back you up on that, there is no runoff, there's no penalties, we will present it after the first year. If we're not satisfied with the performance, we do not have to renew. There is no, like self-insurance, there's no runoff period, there's no additional cost. It's a flat per employee, per member fee that we pay And then after 12 months, if the performance is not there, we do not need to proceed and do renewals, and there will be no penalties.
I have a question. So do any of our other contracts have penalties? I would think not. If they're renewable every year, is there any other contracts with penalties for non-renewal?
Most of all of our contracts, we don't have penalties for not, because when we do the approvals and we do the extensions, what that means is that we're going to come back in 12 months regardless.
Okay,
It's not just a 3-year and you get it for 3 years.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
The chair votes no. The resolution passes. Moving on, resolution 5490, authorizing the CEO of CMHA as signature on moderate rehab contracts effective January 1, 2021.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. The resolution passes. Resolution 5491, adopting the significant amendment to the fiscal year 2020 annual 5-year capital plan to incorporate changes required for the admissions and occupancy policy for low-income public housing wait list administration.
Motion.
Thank you. The second?
Second.
All right.
Mr.
Any
Chairman?
questions?
Question is, was this a last minute addition to the agenda? Because I did not see it on the other copy, first copy I got of this agenda.
Yeah, it's not on the first copy. It was an addition to the agenda. The reason it wasn't on the first copy is because it's an amendment to our ACOP, which is the admissions occupancy policy. And we had to check legal parameters on the HUD waiver that allows us to make this change without going out for 45 days. And so we wanted to make the change, and after we got the legal update that we're allowed to do it, and then we added it to the board agenda.
Can we get a brief summary of what that is from Lisa or from you?
I can do that. So we have changed our computer system from Elite to Yardi, as you know. And so this is just a process change relating to our wait list.
So how we used to, our old process, because of our old system, used to call for us to do 2 checks because of the way that the software system categorized or placed people on a wait list. Because we changed and have new software, we don't have to do that second check, but it is in our policy. So what we've been doing it, so we need to stop that process. And the only way we can stop it is to change our policy. Because if someone was to come and audit, they would see it in our policy and they would say, well, why aren't you doing it if it's in your policies? And so that's why it was an add-on. And because we want to stop doing that process that we no longer need to do because we have a new software system.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr.
Sorry.
O'Donnell,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. The resolution passes. And if there's no other business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. The motion passes. The regular board meeting is adjourned.
Bill, I'd just like to thank the staff for getting us through this crazy year we had and doing such a great job. And I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and they stay healthy and safe throughout the holiday season.
Happy
Absolutely.
holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you guys,
you.
but we still have 3 more board meetings to go through.
I think Laverne's leading anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, Tom may want to say it 2 more times, Greg.
I forgot about the instrumentalities. Sorry.
All right. It's worth repeating, Tom. All
But
right.
Mr. Weedman, thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Okay.
Want me to say it again, Greg?
I do.
This is the contemporaneous meeting for instrumentalities that do not have any new business or matters requiring deliberation. The meetings of the following instrumentalities: Laurel Homes 1, Lincoln View Incorporated, Reserve on South Martin, Southwest Ohio Housing Development Incorporated, Cary Crossing Development Corporation, West Union Square Development Corporation, Sutterview Development Corporation, Pinecrest Rad Development Corporation, Park Eden Evanston LLC, Park Eden Apartments Development Corporation, Mariana Terrace Development Corporation, and Bennett Point Development Corporation are hereby called to order. Roll call, Ms. Mitchell. Has departed.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Weedman.
Present.
Mr. Harris.
Present.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Present.
And the chair is present. We have a quorum. Commissioners, have you reviewed the November 24, 2020 minutes for these instrumentalities? And if so, are there any corrections? Hearing none. Is there... All right, thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell will abstain, I'm imagining.
Yep.
And the chair votes aye, the motion passes. There's no new business for these instrumentalities. May I have a
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
The chair votes aye, the meeting is adjourned. Moving on to the next instrumentality. This is the regular meeting of Touchstone Property Services Incorporated for Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. The meeting is called to order. Roll call, Mr. Weedman.
Present.
Mr. Harris.
Present.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Present.
And the chair is present. We have a quorum. Item 3 is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the
Motion
minutes
to
from
approve.
the meeting on November 24th, 2020? We have a motion and a second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Any corrections? Hearing none, roll call, Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Abstain.
And the chair votes aye, the motion passes. Item 4 is discussion of recommendations. Resolution number 113, approving the calendar year 2021 annual budget for City West Retail, Park Eden Apartments, Park Eden Evanston, Pinecrest, Sutterview, Hamilton County Affordable Housing, and Touchstone Property Management. Is there a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
Thank you. A second.
Second.
All right. Any questions? Hearing none, roll call, Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The resolution passes. And if there's no other business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn the Touchstone
moved.
Property Services meeting? I have a motion. May I have a second? Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, Tom, come on.
I'm gonna wait till after.
He can't remember. Is that what he's, okay, funny. Okay, roll call. Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The resolution passes.
Hey,
And
Greg, let me just take this moment to thank everybody for the great job they've done during this crazy year we've lived through. And I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a safe and happy holiday, including you, Greg.
Including you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I
Is it
do
better
have,
the first time or the second time?
well, I just want to say one thing. You know, we have had a difficult year, but it's been a difficult year together. And a lot of the things that we've asked you guys to approve You guys have supported us and approved it. So we really, really appreciate that because we couldn't do this. It's truly a team with us, but I can speak for the rest of the staff. It's a team with you guys as well. So we really, really appreciate that. And so it's been a good team movement through this process, and we've learned a lot, I think, especially on this with the Zoom efforts. So I really appreciate that and appreciate your continued support of the Housing Authority. So I just wanted to make sure I said that.
Not to mention some of the great things we've done in RAD and everything this year. We've done some really monumental things. So it's been a real success.
Yeah, just in this board meeting, on 2 of the approvals, you approved a record number of janitorial companies of MBE, WBE, Section 3, and we're continuously are the leaders in Hamilton County of putting small to mid-sized businesses to work, and we're not the largest organization or spends the most money. So these are monumental things that we're doing. And you guys approved the redevelopment of Winton and Findlater a few months ago. And then now we're moving into Avondale, which is huge for the organization with Maple and Beechwood. So this is truly, it's interesting time, but it's exciting all at the same. So we're moving right along.
And I'll just add, since we're doing thanks, my thanks really truly is I just appreciate the transparency, the straightforwardness, and the clarity of the work. I feel like our time together is efficient. I feel like you all always answer questions really objectively and try to provide all of the information. And then there's just an honesty about the work that I want to highlight and recognize, and just hope that we can just continue that work. I don't ever feel like at any moment there's any, we're trying to rush things through, and we present the good and the bad. And so that's just, for me, a very positive quality. And so I feel really confident when a question is being asked that we're getting the full picture. So I feel very, very thankful for that, and appreciate obviously that's under your leadership, Greg, but yes.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Can't improve on those comments. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Have a great night. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.